Welcome to the Pump and Dump channel for another video, this time looking mostly into the narrative surrounding the coronavirus in relation to the economy, the stock market and things like that. We're starting to see here, like Fauci expresses cautious optimism, coronavirus outbreak is slowing, US could start reopening in May. This is of course very important because the officials, or let's call them the public officials, are starting to come out with some hope, and the media is still bashing, so it could be a sign of this rebound that's happened. Of course, we fell down the waterfall of hope with all the, Trump saying, "Oh, this is a hoax," and changing then his rhetoric, and then talking about what they're doing to help the economy, stimulus packages, QE, and everything. And when we got down here somewhere, Trump made this statement that the numbers are going to look really bad for the next couple of weeks, and we rebounded. Now we're climbing the wall of worry again. So given this hope here, there is some indication that this rebound is maybe going to continue. I don't know how high. I mean, I don't want to put out targets, of course. I mean, you could put it at any point here, or this would be like a really strong area, 27,000. And who knows if then afterwards we go down, because I've also heard this now. There is this argument that we've only seen the first wave of coronavirus deaths, and therefore, we're going to see a second and third wave potentially, and therefore, we're not out of the clear yet. And this is kind of language that reminds me of the 2009 crash, or 2008, 2009. I remember when we were kind of bottoming around there. I remember hearing in the news all this talk about a double dip recession, where we'd go down and then we'd go down even more. So there's like, oh no, you shouldn't buy, and I don't know. It's very confusing to know what the market makers in the stock market are trying to get us to do, because of course they buy and they sell. They have to buy and sell usually, and they set the prices in accordance with their inventory of how much more they'll be willing to buy, and at what prices they're willing to buy more, and what they're offering, and so on and so forth. So we have some interesting factoids coming out of there. And then I want to get to the UK, because I saw last week, I think it was Tuesday or so, I saw this article talking about the number of deaths related to the coronavirus in Germany were much lower in the UK, and nobody knew why, or people were asking why. And also I've seen before this people criticizing the Chinese figures, saying that they're underreporting, and they're comparing to Spain and Italy, and saying, well, in Spain, Italy is really bad, and in China they have more people but they have less deaths, and they're saying that China is fudging the numbers, and all these conspiracy theories blaming each other. And I don't speak Spanish, Chinese, or Italian, so I can't really look into that, but Germany and England I can look into that. So Germany, I heard today in the news, they have 1/3 of the number of deaths relative to the UK, even though they have a bigger population of, I think, like 50% almost more in population, and also they have similar infection rates. So the media, of course, is still pushing this. They want to get as much attention as possible, and they're putting out more scenarios of where there might be deaths that are not accounted for. So here, hundreds of UK care home deaths not added to official coronavirus toll, and they have a nice chart here. Hospitals, care homes, and registered death certificates, blah blah blah. So there's they're kind of saying that there are more deaths than we know about. And then here, this headline is also very important. UK coronavirus deaths passes 10,000 as a further 737 patients die after testing positive for COVID-19. So in this headline, there's three factoids to look at. So coronavirus deaths passes 10,000, so the official number relating to the coronavirus deaths, 10,000 plus. And then here another fact is that 737 patients die, and they had tested positive for coronavirus. But the key thing is here, after testing positive for COVID-19, it's not they died due to COVID-19, but they died and they tested positive. for coronavirus, so that kind of suggests that the cause is not related to that. And when I was reading these headlines, I decided to go and look at the UK national statistics, how they're counting it, and here they're counting deaths involving coronavirus, and that's that headline here, counting coronavirus, is what we are seeing here. And basically they say that they're counting every death registered for the relevant week for which COVID-19 was mentioned on the death certificate, whether as the underlying cause of death or not. So we don't know if they died because of it, how many died because of it, and how many died from other things, like say I have a car accident and I have internal bleeding and organ failures or whatever, and then I'm whilst I'm dying there, doctors can't save me, they test me for coronavirus and they say, oh, he died of internal organ failure, and he also tested positive for coronavirus, so he's going to be included in the number. Now, getting to the CDC, it's very important. This is a press release, or whatever you want to call it, from the 28th of March 2020. In here they're talking about something that's very important, mortality. Here this paragraph kind of sums up. I'm not going to go through the whole thing obviously, but this paragraph is very important. It says here the percentage of deaths attributed to pneumonia and influenza is 8.2%, which is above the epidemic threshold of 7.2. So what I've seen, of course, on their official statistics is they don't report people who died from pneumonia and influenza. They report them separately because they don't want to surpass the threshold here, right? So deaths due to pneumonia have increased sharply since the end of February, while those due to influenza increased modestly through early March and declined this week. So from the 21st until the 28th of March, flu deaths have decreased, and at the same time pneumonia has increased. And pneumonia and flu, of course they're not the same, but you would think that if one went up, the other would go up too. At least that's what I would think. And then here is very important: deaths attributed specifically to COVID-19 will be reported next week. So next week was ending the 4th of April, and here we have it. So it's been updated as of the 10th of April. COVID-19 deaths almost 5,000 out of a total number of deaths of 500,000 for the whole country, I guess. And pneumonia deaths, here we can see 36,000 deaths with pneumonia and COVID-19, 2,300. So I think this 2,300 is included in this number here, but I'm not sure. And then here we have influenza deaths. So looking at the increase here, of course, in the US they didn't do any testing in February because I think what the story was, it was they wanted to use tests made by an American company, and therefore they went with delays, and then they started testing, and then they started seeing these numbers increase, especially here. This is very important. If we look here, the 21st of March, it was only 400. It was up 10x from the previous week, sure, but then we jumped into this week ending here 2,000, and now it's 2,600. So of course it spiked, and now it's flattening, because of course it's not that when they test people that people are infected with coronavirus, and as they're testing people are increasingly getting exposed and catching the coronavirus. It's kind of like the coronavirus in theory would be there, and then they're just measuring it, so it's kind of lagging. So who really knows how many people are going to test positive going forward. Something very important here is this footnote here. Deaths with confirmed or presumed COVID-19. So we don't know again how many of these 5,000 are deaths who are labeled on the death certificate as being caused by coronavirus. Is it 1,000 out of 5,000? Is it 4,000 out of 5,000? Who really knows? And presumed COVID-19 deaths, that could be, again, it could be flu people, flu deaths. I mean, here we see like total flu and total coronavirus are almost the same, but what we see is, like I just mentioned in here, flu deaths or attributed to flu are declining. Especially you see it here starting this week. Increase here decrease there, more increase, more decrease, more increase, more decrease. So this is very important, these statistics, because what the coronavirus has been, labeled as is an illness showing flu-like symptoms. So if you had the flu-like symptoms, like a fever or something like that, then it would have been possible that you had the coronavirus. And as a consequence of that, maybe some people identified as having coronavirus whilst they really had the flu. And I've heard this argument, I can't remember where, but it was somewhere last week I heard someone talking about the fact that the genetic data that China released was not able to separate the virus from the genetic code. So basically what the person was saying was that the coronavirus tests are testing for a genetic sequence that people carry in their body rather than a virus, because they're not able to isolate this virus. And that kind of makes sense to me. I mean, why would you have asymptomatic people who test positive for coronavirus but they're not showing any symptoms? They don't get sick. If it's a virus, I mean, a virus usually causes you to get sick, I guess. And if they're asymptomatic, it might be that they have a genetic code in their body somewhere that is being tested and identified, but they're not showing any symptoms. So hey, maybe the tests are not so good. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'll read this later, but I mean, this kind of back then, when was this? January, was saying no signs of human to human spread, but now they say there is human to human spread. Genetic findings, blah blah blah. So I mean, here they're talking about genetics. Let's see if they have any mention of a virus in here. So yeah, here they mentioned that they announced they had isolated and fully sequenced the virus, and that kind of contradicts what I heard. Like I said, some people say it's testing a genetic sequence rather than a virus. But I mean, this same article here is saying there's no human to human spread, but now we are saying that there is human to human spread. So maybe they were wrong on this, and maybe they're wrong on this. Who really knows? It's really difficult for, of course, someone who's not in this field to know what is the truth, and that is kind of why this video is more about what we don't know about the coronavirus rather than what we know, because oftentimes I see this that people make these these statements, what we know about it, and then they give you some factoids, things like tens of thousands of people are dying from it, and then they kind of like construct this picture, this view of what you should believe, and I kind of don't go that direction. I just bring up some points that show me that we don't really know anything about this, most of us normal people. And I found this article here, which was also interesting, because I was thinking about these tests. Okay, if some people say they don't test the right thing, and here they talk about the months into the COVID-19, the United States has finally moved from relying entirely on a single flawed diagnostic test to having what may soon be an onslaught of testing options available from the private sector. And then they're talking about that they'll have 20 tests, and this is very, very telling. I mean, it's a flawed diagnostic test according to this article. So I mean, if it's not able to identify who has the coronavirus, and therefore they get positives on people on showing no symptoms, then like what data can we really use? I mean, what's the point of all this testing, and can we really believe the numbers? Because if we think about it, the government and the media, they're always lying about all kinds of things. The government was always downplaying the unemployment numbers, saying that people who are unemployed and discourage workers, that they're not looking for work, so they don't get counted in the unemployment statistics, and therefore the rate of unemployment is dropping and dropping and dropping for years, whilst people are just getting discouraged and not being counted anymore. And now, of course, we're starting to see increases in people claiming unemployment benefits in the US. So okay, I guess that's normal. I mean, that was kind of foreseeable even before this virus thing started becoming the main soundbite. I talked about this long time ago about manufacturing ISM data just plummeting and deflationary pressures setting in due to lack of liquidity in the system, and lots of companies just can't make it at these low prices because the money is, of course, is always flowing into the stock, not into the stock market, but into the financial community, who then uses that money to loan out or to invest and to enrich themselves. But they don't really spend it in the real economy buying goods and services. So a lot of the money that is created by the commercial banks, for instance, that goes to, into the financial markets rather than into the real economy. And that's kind of why we're seeing these deflationary pressures, and that is more likely the reason why these companies are failing rather than the coronavirus. I mean, some people are like now saying, oh, this and that company are struggling because of the coronavirus is impacting their business, and Boeing is in trouble because of the coronavirus. The airlines are not ordering new planes, and I mean, if we just think about it logically, just like Boeing is like an example so clear. It's just lie and made up. If you just think about it, the reason why the airlines are not ordering Boeing planes is because their planes don't fly and they just crash. So what's the point of buying a faulty plane until it's fixed? So that's kind of the story with Boeing. Has nothing to do with coronavirus. I saw this video here. This one's very interesting. Coronavirus, German study shows COVID-19 might not be fatal as previously thought. And if you go and watch this video, basically what he talks about in this video is that they tested I think it was a city or village or town or whatever in Germany, and they found that out of all the people who tested positive, there was only like 0.37 percentage points of the people who died from it. So they're kind of saying that the death rates relating to the coronavirus directly was very low, 0.37%. And that kind of goes back to how we're counting the statistics. I mean, in the UK, they're counting everyone who dies, whether coronavirus is mentioned on the death certificate. In the US, they're using presumed COVID-19. So let's say to get it to like 0.37, which is like, it's almost like 1% here. So if we like take 2/3 out of this here, 2/3 from 5,000 is about 3,300. So if we take like 1,600 people are really linked to the coronavirus, if we kind of like assume that that can be replicated, what this guy in this video is saying on CNBC, of course, it's not like some conspiracy theory guy. They have this on CNBC probably for a reason. They probably want to build investor sentiment to start selling off the stock that they bought during this dip here. So yeah, if we could find out later that it's only been like 1,500, 2,000 people who have died as a consequence of the coronavirus, and that presumes, of course, if there is a coronavirus anyway. I mean, like I said, in flu-like symptoms, flu cases are decreasing, coronaviruses are increasing. Pneumonia cases here, you can see that they are, they were increasing here and then they are decreasing there, and this is kind of a bit interesting because like you see flu and pneumonia is decreasing, but pneumonia with coronavirus and coronavirus is increasing. So you kind of see where the deaths are shifting, where they're going, and it kind of brings up questions as to, can we really believe these how they're recording this? Because like one doctor in one state in the US, for example, he might say, well, it looks to me like coronavirus, so I'll just put that on the death certificate, and another doctor will be like, oh, I'm going to test this, and we're going to check, make sure that it is the coronavirus, and therefore, you're dealing with aggregates of numbers that are coming from different people, and some doctors are better than other doctors, and that's everybody knows that. It's like athletes. Some athletes run faster than others and work harder than others, and some people just get the job because it pays well and they need to do something to get some money. So who really knows? I mean, if it was like one doctor who was doing all the cases and he was like Superman flying all over the place, then we could say that if his methodology is correct, then the figures are correct. But if we're dealing with thousands of doctors who are recording these numbers, and some doctors are presuming coronavirus, whilst others are like, oh, it could be coronavirus, but I'm not sure, and therefore I'm not going to count him, then we know that, of course, these figures are not accurate and not reflective of the real situation. Whether better or worse, we don't really know. So yeah, I guess that's going to do it for this video. Important thing to note is that, of course, we can't believe the government statistics. We never can, but we can always use them as an indication as to what the market perception might be. And that's all I guess I can say for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, opinions, you should leave them in the comment section. I might be right on some things, wrong on other things. I never claim to be perfect. Some people like to talk with with a lot of confidence and act like they know something, but you know, most of us, we don't know the whole picture. So you know, we just have to go with indications of what we see and what we tend to see as plausible, and especially with the stock market rebounding here during all this time of worry when the numbers are increasing. You know, I mean, come on, like the 24th of March, 23rd of March, we bottomed here, and that is around the time we start seeing this massive increase, 10x, and that's then, you know, a week later it's 4x up, and then it's only like a little up. So we kind of see the peaking of the official numbers. I mean, you go up from 45 to 423. That's in percentages, that's a huge jump, but in relative terms, I mean, it's only like 378 people more, and then this month here it's only up like 4x, and that's 1,468 people more who died. So you know, it's not looking at the numbers, it's looking at the percentages, the gradual increase, and that's probably what we're seeing reflected here in the investor sentiment. Once they started reporting, which was, you know, started here, they started reporting more widely, we saw that the market bottomed, and yeah, it's kind of like the statistics lag what is really happening, and during this rebound here, we are probably starting to factor in that there is some hope about the US economy opening up in May. And whether that happens or not is not so important. I think it is likely going to happen. We will probably see the stock market, you know, it might go up a bit more from here, but for, let's say, another week, let's say it goes up for a week to here, like to 25, or to here to 26, 27. And then as we go into the 1st of May, when we declare victory and reopen the economy in the US, we'll see it just sell off, because that will be the sell the news moment. That's kind of how you have to think about the psychology here. Very important to remember that. So yeah, what else can I say? If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll leave it with that. So have a good day.